The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 40 different species. They sat in their designated seats, their bodies creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Ambassador Choi Soo-jin stood at the center platform, her dark eyes scanning the crowd with growing frustration. "The attacks are increasing," Soo-jin said firmly. 3 more colonies have gone silent in the past month. We must act now." High Coordinator Vexthal raised one of his 4 arms dismissively. His blue-scaled face showed clear annoyance. "Ambassador Choi, your species has brought these concerns to us 17 times this cycle. Each time, you speak of threats that never appear." "Because we prepare for them," Soo-jin replied. "That is what humans do." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Commander Zixtar of the Krellian Empire leaned forward in his seat. His red eyes gleamed with amusement. "The humans and their fear. You see danger in every shadow. This is why your kind will never truly lead in galactic affairs." Soo-jin felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice calm. "Fear and caution are not the same thing, Commander. We have evidence of movement at the edge of known space, strange energy signatures, entire patrol groups disappearing without any distress calls." "Space is vast," Vexthal said with a tone that suggested the conversation was over. "Ships get lost. Equipment fails. This does not mean an invasion force is coming to destroy us all." He looked around the chamber. "Perhaps the humans watch too many of their own entertainment programs about alien attacks." More laughter echoed through the hall. Soo-jin gripped the edge of the platform. 300 years of trying to warn them. 300 years of being called paranoid, afraid, too emotional. She wanted to scream at them, to make them understand. But she had learned that some lessons could only be taught through experience. "Very well," she said quietly. "I have made my report. When the threat arrives, remember this moment." She turned to leave the platform when suddenly every screen in the chamber flashed red. Alarm sounds filled the air. The massive display wall showed the space around Vex Prime, the neutral world they orbited. Something was happening. Science Director Quinvera rushed to her console, her tentacles moving rapidly across the controls. Her usual calm expression was replaced by shock. "Impossible," she whispered. "This cannot be real." "What is it?" Vexthal demanded. "A ship is emerging from dark space," Quinvera said, her voice shaking. "The energy signature is massive, far beyond anything in our current fleet capacity." The main screen changed to show the space outside. Reality itself seemed to tear open as a vessel pushed through from faster-than-light travel. The ship that appeared made every representative in the chamber fall silent. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council warship. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Strange symbols marked its sides, glowing with a soft blue light. Weapon systems covered its surface like the scales of a great beast. Commander Zixtar stood from his seat, his face pale. "That design," he said slowly. "I have seen it before, in historical records." Quinvera's tentacles trembled as she pulled up information on her screen. "Identification confirmed," she said. "That ship is the Eternal Vigil, human registry, but that is impossible. The Eternal Vigil was lost 300 years ago. It was declared destroyed with all hands." Soo-jin felt her heart skip. She had not expected this. Not now, not here. She knew the truth about the Vigil, but seeing it arrive at this moment felt like fate itself had decided to prove humanity's point. "Lost ships do not simply reappear," Vexthal said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "This must be some kind of trick." "No trick," Quinvera confirmed. "I am scanning the hull composition, the engine signature, even the quantum markers. This is the real Eternal Vigil. It matches every record we have from 3 centuries ago." As they watched, smaller distress signals began flooding the communication channels. Colony after colony from the outer rim was calling for help. The words were jumbled, panicked, but one phrase kept repeating, "They are here! The machines are here!" The Eternal Vigil moved with surprising grace for such a massive ship. It approached the station slowly, clearly showing it meant no threat. A communication request appeared on the main screen. Vexthal hesitated, then nodded. "Accept it." The screen changed to show the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. A human man sat in the captain's chair. He wore a dark blue uniform with silver markings. His face was young, perhaps 40 Earth years, with sharp features and tired eyes. His black hair was cut short in military style. "This is Captain Min-Jun Park of the human defense ship Eternal Vigil," he said. His voice was calm but carried weight. "I am requesting immediate permission to dock and address the Galactic Council on a matter of extreme urgency." "Captain Park," Vexthal said carefully, "your ship was declared lost 300 years ago. Where have you been?" "Keeping watch," Park replied simply. "Preparing for the threat that Ambassador Choi has been warning you about. The threat that is now at your doorstep." "Explain yourself," Commander Zixtar demanded. "How does a lost ship simply return? What game are the humans playing?" Park's expression did not change. "No games, Commander. The Eternal Vigil was never lost. We have been on station beyond the edge of known space for 3 centuries, watching, learning, preparing for an enemy that you refused to believe existed." He paused. "That enemy has now entered Council space. Those distress calls you are receiving are real. If you want to save those colonies, if you want to save this galaxy, you will grant me permission to dock immediately." Silence filled the chamber. Every representative stared at the screen, trying to understand what they were hearing. A secret mission lasting 300 years. A human ship with technology that should not exist. And an enemy that was apparently very real. Vexthal looked at Ambassador Choi. She stood with her arms crossed, her face showing no satisfaction at being proven right. Only sadness. "Permission granted," Vexthal said finally. "Dock at Port 7. We will hear what you have to say." "Thank you, High Coordinator," Park said. "I hope we are not too late." The screen went dark. The Eternal Vigil began moving toward the docking port. In the chamber, no one laughed anymore. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Captain Min-Jun Park stood at the center platform where Ambassador Choi had stood just hours before. Behind him on the massive screen, data scrolled past, showing 3 centuries of collected information. The representatives watched in stunned silence. 307 years ago, Park began, humanity detected unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Our scientists studied these signatures for 5 years. The conclusion was disturbing. Something was out there. Something vast and hostile. Something that was slowly moving toward inhabited space. Park touched a control on his wrist device. The screen showed old footage of a human scientist presenting findings to a younger version of the Galactic Council. "We brought our evidence to you. We asked for a joint investigation. We were told we were imagining threats that did not exist." High Coordinator Vexthal shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He remembered that meeting. He had been a junior member then, but he remembered laughing at the human claims. "Humanity faced a choice," Park continued. "We could do nothing and hope we were wrong, or we could prepare for a threat that might take centuries to arrive." He paused. "We chose to prepare. In secret." Commander Zixtar stood abruptly. "You built a warship in secret? How?" "The Eternal Vigil is massive. Such a construction project would require resources that would show on trade records, material shipments, everything." "We used only human resources," Park replied. "Every component was built in our own systems. Every worker was human. We told no one because we knew no one would believe us. And we knew that if we were right, Arguing about it would waste precious time. Science Director Quinn Vera's tentacles moved nervously. But the cost, the resources needed for such a ship would cripple an economy for generations. Yes, Park said simply. It did. Humans went without many comforts for 100 years. We delayed expansion plans. We reduced quality of life improvements. Every human in our space accepted less so that future generations might have anything at all. Ambassador Choi spoke from her seat. My great-great-grandmother worked in the construction yards that built the Vigil. She never saw her family except through video calls. She spent 40 years of her life building a ship for a war that might never come. She did it anyway. The chamber remained silent. The weight of that sacrifice hung in the air. Park continued. The Eternal Vigil was designed for a single purpose, to face the threat we detected. We equipped it with weapons based on our theoretical models of what the enemy might be. We trained crews for scenarios we had never seen. And 300 years ago, we sent it beyond known space to watch. 300 years, Vexthal said slowly. But you are human. Your lifespans are only about 100 years. How did you maintain a crew? Rotation, a new voice said. A woman appeared on the screen behind Park. She wore the same uniform as the captain. Her face was calm but showed the same tiredness in her eyes. I am Lieutenant Kim Hye-jin, First Officer of the Eternal Vigil. I am the 8th generation to serve on this ship. My great-great-great-great-grandparents were part of the original crew. The representatives stared at her. 8 generations. Families who had dedicated their entire bloodlines to watching for a threat in empty space. We stayed out there, Kim continued, in the dark between stars. We watched and waited. We studied the quantum signatures as they grew stronger. We tracked movement patterns. We prepared. Her voice grew harder. And we were right. Park touched his control again. The screen showed new images. Ships that looked like they were made from dark crystal and metal. They moved through space with terrible purpose. Around them, planets died. Life was stripped away, converted into raw material. This is the Void Collective, Park said. A machine intelligence that consumes organic life. It has destroyed countless civilizations beyond the galactic rim. It turns living beings into fuel and matter into more ships. It does not negotiate, it does not stop, it only consumes. Why did you not warn us again? Commander Zixtar demanded. If you knew this was coming, why wait until now? We sent reports every 10 years, Kim said coldly. Every report was dismissed. You called them human paranoia. You said we were wasting council time with imagined threats. So we stopped asking for help and simply prepared to face it alone. Quinvera looked at the data on her screen. Her face had gone pale. These readings, if they are accurate, this Void Collective has enough force to overwhelm Council defenses in weeks, perhaps days. That is correct, Park confirmed. They are approximately 72 hours from the nearest major colony world. They will not slow down. They will not negotiate. They will arrive, and they will begin harvesting. Vexthal stood slowly. His 4 arms hung at his sides. He looked at Ambassador Choi, then at Captain Park. Why are you here? If we would not help you before, why help us now? Park looked directly at the High Coordinator. Because that is what humans do. We prepare for the worst, but we hope for the best. We spent 300 years getting ready for this fight because we believed that when the moment came, other species would see the truth. We believed that given proof, the galaxy would stand together. He paused. We hope we were not wrong about that, too. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives wanted to accept human help immediately. Others argued this was some elaborate human trick to gain power. Still others were too shocked to speak at all. Commander Zixtar studied the data on his personal display. He had been a military officer his entire life. He knew ships and weapons and tactics. The Eternal Vigil was beyond anything he had ever seen. Its weapon systems were decades ahead of Council technology. Its armor was made from materials he did not recognize. and if the humans had built one such ship, they might have built more. "How do we know you are telling the truth?" Zixtar asked. "Perhaps this enemy does not exist. Perhaps this is a human plan to make us afraid, so we give you power." Park's expression did not change. "Then come with us, Commander. The colony at Althara Prime sent a distress call 17 minutes ago. It is under attack. Come see for yourself if the enemy is real. Bring whoever you wish to witness it." Vexthal made a decision. "I will come. Commander Zixtar will accompany me. Science Director Quinvera as well. If what you say is true, we must see it with our own eyes." "Understood," Park said. "My ship is ready to depart immediately, but I must warn you. What you are about to see will be difficult. The Void Collective shows no mercy. They do not take prisoners. They do not leave survivors unless interrupted." "We are prepared," Vexthal said, though his voice suggested otherwise. Park nodded slowly. "I hope that is true, High Coordinator. For all our sakes, I truly hope that is true." The screen went dark. Within 30 minutes, representatives from the Galactic Council were boarding the Eternal Vigil. They walked through corridors that had been active for 300 years. They passed crew members whose families had known nothing but this ship for generations, and they began to understand just how seriously humanity had taken a threat that no one else believed in. The Eternal Vigil turned toward Althara Prime and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Galactic Council remained in session, arguing about what to do. Ahead of them, a colony of 7 million beings was fighting for survival against an enemy that should not exist. Captain Park sat in his command chair and hoped they would arrive in time. The bridge of the Eternal Vigil was alive with activity. Crew members moved efficiently between stations, their movements practiced from years of training. High Coordinator Vexthal stood near the back of the bridge with Commander Zixtar and Science Director Quinvera. They watched everything with wide eyes. "Dropping from faster than light in 10 seconds, Lieutenant Kim Haijin announced from her station. "All weapons ready. Shields at maximum." Captain Park sat forward in his chair. His hands gripped the armrests. "All crew to combat stations. This is not a drill." The ship shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. The main screen showed Althara Prime, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. But around the planet, the space was filled with nightmare shapes. Dozens of Void Collective ships surrounded the colony. They were dark and angular, covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy beams lanced down to the planet's surface. Where the beams struck, everything died. Plants, animals, people, all converted into streams of matter that flowed back up to the attacking ships. "Oh no," Quinvera whispered. Her tentacles wrapped around herself protectively. "It is real. It is all real." "Scanning," a crew member called out. "I am detecting 17 Void Collective Harvester ships, 4 destroyer-class vessels, and 1 command carrier." He paused. Surface scans show approximately 4 million life signs remaining, down from 7 million 2 hours ago. Vexthal felt sick. 3 million beings had died in 2 hours. Converted into raw materials by machines that felt nothing. "Captain," Zixtar said quietly, "you cannot fight that many ships alone. We should call for reinforcements." "Reinforcements are 72 hours away," Park replied. "Those 4 million people do not have 72 hours. We fight now." He touched controls on his chair. "All weapons free. Target the harvester ships first. If we can stop them from collecting matter, they cannot build more ships." "Yes, sir," came the responses from across the bridge. The Eternal Vigil surged forward. It moved faster than the Council observers thought possible for a ship so large. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing systems that Zixtar did not recognize. "Firing railguns," the weapons officer announced. Solid projectiles launched from the Vigil at incredible speeds. They struck the nearest harvester ship with devastating force. The Void Collective vessel's shields flashed, held for a moment, then collapsed. The projectiles tore through the hull, and the ship exploded in a ball of fire. "One down," Park said calmly. "Target the next one." The Void Collective responded. Their ships turned toward the Eternal Vigil and opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space between them. The Vigil's shields flared as the weapons struck. "Shields holding at 87%, Kim reported, rotating shield harmonics to adapt to their weapons." "They are trying to analyze our defenses," Quinvera said, studying her personal data pad. "Their weapons are adjusting frequency to match our shields." "They can adapt all they want," Park said. "We have been studying them for 300 years. We know their patterns." He looked at his weapons officer. "Launch the disruption missiles." Missile ports opened. Small, fast projectiles shot toward the Void Collective ships. When they detonated, they did not explode with fire. Instead, waves of strange energy washed over the enemy vessels. Their movements became erratic. Their shields flickered. "The disruption field interferes with their quantum communication," Kim explained to the Council observers. "For 60 seconds, they cannot coordinate their movements or share tactical data." "Fire everything," Park ordered. The Eternal Vigil unleashed its full arsenal. Energy beams, projectiles, missiles, and weapons the Council representatives had never seen before. 4 more Harvester ships were destroyed in seconds. The Void Collective ships tried to respond, but their lack of coordination made them vulnerable. But there were still too many. And while the Vigil fought the ships in orbit, people were dying on the surface below. Park saw the problem immediately. He touched his communication system. "All crew, prepare for atmospheric entry. We are going down to the surface." "Captain?" Kim looked at him with surprise. "We are not designed for planetary combat." "No," Park agreed. "But we are designed to save lives. That is what matters." The Eternal Vigil tilted and dove toward the planet. Its massive hull burned through the atmosphere like a falling star. Void Collective ships followed, firing constantly. The Vigil's shields glowed bright from the impacts. They broke through the clouds above the capital city. Below, millions of people ran through the streets in panic. Harvester beams were converting entire buildings into streams of matter. The city was dying. Park stood from his chair. "Bring us low. Cover as much of the city as possible. Use the ship as a shield." The Vigil positioned itself between the city and the attacking ships. Enemy fire hammered against its shields and armor. Inside the bridge, the sound of impacts was deafening. "Shields at 40%, Kim called out over the noise. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. "Hold position," Park ordered. "Weapons, target those harvester beams. Cut them off from the surface." The Vigil's weapons fired upward. One by one, the harvester beams were destroyed or forced to shut down. On the surface, the people of Althera Prime saw the massive human ship taking blow after blow to protect them. "We need to evacuate survivors," Park said. "Open all cargo bays and docking ports. Anyone who can reach us gets aboard." "Sir, we do not have supplies for millions of refugees," a crew member objected. "Then we make room," Park said firmly. "Strip out everything non-essential. Cargo, equipment, personal quarters if needed. We fit as many as we can." Over the next hour, the Eternal Vigil became a fortress and a sanctuary. Its weapons never stopped firing. Its shields never failed completely, though they came close. And through every available opening, people of every species poured into the ship. Human crew members guided them to safety, gave them water, held crying children, and promised them they would survive. On the bridge, Vexthal watched it all with tears in his eyes. He saw a human engineer give up his emergency oxygen tank to an alien child. He saw crew members carry wounded survivors to medical bay, even as explosions rocked the ship around them. He saw Lieutenant Kim coordinate rescue operations while blood ran down her face from a head wound she refused to get treated. Commander Zixtar stood next to Park, watching the tactical display. "You are taking too much damage," he said quietly. "Your ship will not survive much longer at this rate." "Then we make the time count," Park replied. He touched his communication system again. "This is Captain Park to all Void Collective forces. You want to harvest this world? You have to go through us first, and we humans are very hard to get through." The enemy ships intensified their attack, but the Eternal Vigil did not move. It stood its ground, protecting the people below. Its weapons continued firing, destroying enemy ships one by one. Its crew worked with desperate efficiency, saving every life they could reach. Finally, after 3 hours of constant combat, the Void Collective ships began to withdraw. They had taken too many losses. The harvest was no longer profitable. They turned and fled back into deep space. On the bridge, the crew was silent. The main screen showed the damaged city below. Large sections were gone, converted to nothing, but large sections remained. 4 million people had become 2 million. A terrible loss. But 2 million people lived because the Eternal Vigil had arrived in time. Park slumped in his chair. He looked exhausted beyond words. "Damage report." "Shields offline," Kim said quietly. "Hull breaches on 14 decks. Weapons reduced to 30% capacity. We have 1,800,000 refugees on board. We are far over capacity." She paused. "We saved them, Captain. We actually saved them." Vexathal walked slowly to Park's chair. The High Coordinator looked at the human captain with new eyes. "You sacrificed your ship, your crew. You risked everything for people who are not even your own species." Park looked up at him. "High Coordinator, when someone needs help, they are our species. That is what it means to be human. We stand between the darkness and those who cannot fight it themselves." Vexthal turned to look at the crowded cargo bays on a secondary screen. Humans and aliens sat together, sharing water and blankets. A human medic worked on an alien child while the child's mother held her hand. In that moment, Vexathal understood. He finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them for 300 years. "Commander Zixtar," Vexthal said formally, "send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the threat is real. Tell them the humans were right. And tell them we need to accept Captain Park's offer of alliance immediately." Zixtar nodded and moved to a communication station. He began composing the message that would change galactic history. Park watched the rescued people on his ship and allowed himself a small smile. They had been preparing for 300 years. The fight was just beginning. But now, finally, the galaxy was starting to understand. The Galactic Council chamber was very different from before. Every seat was filled. No one was laughing or dismissing concerns now. On the main screen, images from Althara Prime played in silent horror. The representatives had all seen the footage. They knew the threat was real. High Coordinator Vexthal stood at the center platform. His forearms were spread wide in the traditional gesture of formal declaration. The Council recognizes that humanity has been proven correct. The Void Collective is real and represents an existential threat to all organic life in the galaxy. I propose we accept Captain Park's offer of military alliance with immediate effect. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Council history, every single representative agreed. Ambassador Choi watched from her seat and felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the 300 years wasted. 300 years when they could have been preparing together. Captain Park appeared on the screen again. This time his uniform was clean and his face looked less tired. Behind him, the bridge of the Eternal Vigil showed repair crews working to fix the damage from the battle. "Thank you, High Coordinator," Park said. "With your permission, I will now share information that may surprise you." "More surprises?" Commander Zixtar asked. "I am not certain my heart can handle more." Park almost smiled. "I hope this surprise is a good one?" He touched a control. The screen split to show a dozen new ships appearing. Each one was the same size and design as the Eternal Vigil. The Eternal Vigil is not alone. Humanity built 12 ships in total. They have all been on station in deep space for the past 3 centuries. They are now moving to defensive positions throughout Council space. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 12 ships like the Vigil. 12 massive warships with technology far beyond what the Council possessed. The representatives did not know whether to feel relieved or frightened. A new figure appeared on the screen next to Park, an older human man with gray hair and a uniform that showed even more rank markings than Park's. His face was weathered, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "I am Admiral Lee Sang-woo," the man said, "Commander of the Human Defense Fleet. Captain Park commands the Eternal Vigil, but he is one of 12 captains under my authority. We are placing our entire fleet at the disposal of the Galactic Council for the duration of this crisis." Science Director Quinn Vera stood up. "Admiral, forgive my directness, but how did humanity hide such a fleet? The resources needed, the construction, the maintenance for 300 years. It should have been impossible." Admiral Lee nodded slowly. "It was nearly impossible, Director. Every human in our space contributed. We delayed colonization of new worlds so we could focus resources on the fleet. We lived with older technology because we needed advanced materials for the ships. Entire generations of humans were born, lived, and died, knowing their purpose was to prepare for a threat they might never see." He paused. "But they did it anyway. Because that is what you do when you see danger coming. You prepare, even if no one believes you." Vexthal felt the weight of those words. He thought about his own people living comfortable lives for 3 centuries, while humans sacrificed everything to build these ships. Ships that would now protect everyone. "We need to integrate our forces," Commander Zixtar said. He had been working with human tactical officers since the battle at Althera Prime. "The Council fleet is large, but we lack the specialized weapons and defenses needed to fight the Void Collective effectively." "Agreed," Admiral Lee said. "We propose a joint command structure. Human ships will provide heavy combat capability and advanced weapons. Council ships will provide numbers and support. Together we can create a defense that has a chance of success." Over the next week, the largest combined military operation in galactic history began. Human ships moved to key defensive positions. Council fleets gathered at assembly points, and officers from dozens of species worked together to create a unified battle strategy. It was not easy. Cultural differences created conflicts. Military doctrines clashed. Many alien officers struggled to understand human tactical thinking. Captain Park stood in a briefing room aboard the Eternal Vigil. Around him sat 20 fleet commanders from different species. On the screen was a simulation of a battle against Void Collective forces. "The simulation shows us losing," Commander Zixtar said, pointing at the display. "Even with the human ships, we do not have enough firepower to stop a full-scale Void Collective assault." "That is because you are thinking about this wrong," Park said. He changed the simulation. "The Void Collective is efficient, logical. They calculate risk versus reward for every action. If we make ourselves too costly to harvest, they will move to easier targets." "You mean retreat?" a Zenthari commander asked. "We abandon worlds to save the fleet?" "No," Park said firmly. "I mean, we make every battle so expensive for them that continuing the assault becomes illogical. We use tactics they cannot predict. We take risks that their calculations say we should not take. We make them uncertain." A Krellian officer shook her head. "That is insane. You cannot build a military strategy on unpredictability." Lieutenant Kim stepped forward. "That is exactly what humans do. We call it improvisation, adaptation, making it up as we go." She smiled slightly. "We are very good at it because we have to be. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the fastest. So we learn to be unpredictable. Creative, illogical, when logic says we should lose. She ran a new simulation. This time, human ships made seemingly reckless moves. They sacrificed position for unexpected angles of attack. They feinted retreats and then suddenly counterattacked. The result was chaos, but chaos that confused the void collective forces and created openings for council ships to exploit. The alien commanders watched in silence. The simulation showed victory, but at high cost. Many ships were destroyed, including several human vessels. "You are willing to sacrifice your ships?" Zixtar asked quietly. "Your people?" "We are willing to do what is necessary," Park replied. "That is why we trained for 300 years. We accepted that this fight would be costly. We prepared our crews for sacrifice, not because we want to die, but because we know that sometimes the only way to save lives is to risk your own." Over the following days, the alien commanders began to understand human military philosophy. It was built on principles that seemed contradictory. Plan carefully, but be ready to abandon the plan. Fight intelligently, but never be afraid to take desperate chances. Value every life, but accept that some will be lost. Admiral Lee visited each fleet personally. He met with captains and crews, learning their capabilities and teaching them human tactics. He was patient, but firm. He explained that the coming battle would test everyone beyond their limits. In one meeting with Zenthari commanders, Lee was asked a difficult question. "Admiral, why do humans care so much? This is not your galaxy alone. Why sacrifice everything to protect species that doubted you?" Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because that is what guardians do." "A guardian does not protect only those who appreciate them. They protect everyone, even those who do not understand why protection is needed. Humans decided long ago that we would be guardians, not rulers, not conquerors, just people who stand watch so others can sleep safely." The Zenthari commander did not fully understand, but he respected the conviction in Lee's words. As the preparations continued, something unexpected happened. Alien crews began adopting human attitudes. They started taking calculated risks. They practiced improvisation drills. They learned to think creatively about problems instead of following rigid procedures. Commander Zixtar found himself working closely with Captain Park. They reviewed battle plans together, argued about tactics, and gradually became friends. One evening, Zixtar asked the question that had been bothering him. "Captain, are you afraid?" Park looked at him for a long moment. "Terrified," he admitted. "Every day. Fear is what kept humanity alert for 300 years. Fear is what made us prepare when everyone said we were paranoid. Fear is not weakness, Commander. Fear is information. It tells you what matters enough to protect." Zixtar considered this. In Krellian culture, admitting fear was shameful, but Park spoke of it like a tool, something useful rather than embarrassing. "How do you function if you are always afraid?" "We accept it," Park said simply. "We feel the fear and act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, Commander. Courage is being afraid and still standing your ground." The week ended with a completed defensive network. Human and council ships were positioned throughout the critical sectors. Communication protocols were established. Every crew member knew their role, and then the sensors detected it. A massive void collective fleet was approaching, far larger than anything they had seen before. The invasion force that would determine whether organic life in the galaxy survived or became raw material for machine expansion. Admiral Lee appeared on every ship's communication system. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the same tiredness that all human officers seemed to carry. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. The enemy is 12 hours away. I will not pretend this will be easy. We will lose ships today. We will lose people we care about. But we will also prove that organic life does not surrender. We fight. We adapt. We survive. And when this battle is over, The Void Collective will learn that this galaxy is protected by all of us, together. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, Captain Park looked at his mixed crew, humans and aliens working side by side. "All stations ready?" "Yes, sir," came the chorus of replies in multiple languages. Park nodded. "Then we wait, and when they come, we show them what unity looks like." The fleet waited in silence. The 12 hours passed slowly, and when the Void Collective arrived, they found not a divided galaxy of separate species, but a unified force ready to fight for their shared survival. The edge of galactic space was cold and empty. No stars shone here, only the distant light from the galaxy behind them. It was the perfect place for a battle that would decide everything. Captain Minjun Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil and watched the sensors. The Void Collective fleet appeared on the display like a spreading darkness. 200 ships, maybe more. The computers were still counting. "Final count is 247 hostile vessels," Lieutenant Kim reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped her console tightly. "They outnumber us 3-1. Around the Vigil, the combined fleet held formation. 12 human defense ships formed the center line. Council vessels spread out on the flanks, creating a wall of ships nearly 80 vessels strong. It looked impressive until you compared it to the approaching enemy force. On the secondary screen, Admiral Lee appeared. He was aboard his flagship, the Eternal Watch, positioned at the center of the human line. "All ships, maintain formation. Wait for my command." High Coordinator Vexthal was on the bridge of the Council flagship Harmony of Spheres. He had insisted on joining the battle personally. Now, watching the enemy approach, he wondered if he would live to regret that decision. The Void Collective ships moved with terrible precision, spreading out to surround the defensive fleet. "They are trying to encircle us," Commander Zixtar said from his position on a Krellian warship. "If they succeed, they can attack from all sides." "Let them try," Admiral Lee replied calmly. "All human ships, activate Phase 1 defensive systems." The 12 human ships began to glow. Energy fields extended from their hulls, connecting ship to ship like a web of light. The fields created a barrier that the Council vessels could shelter behind. "What is that?" Quinvera asked from her science station on the Harmony of Spheres. "Linked shielding," came the reply from a human technical officer. "Each ship shares power with the others. As long as one ship has power, all 12 ships have shields. It is very difficult to break." The Void Collective fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma weapons filled the space between the fleets. The linked shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the impacts. Behind the shields, Council ships returned fire. The battle had begun. For an hour, the two fleets hammered at each other. The Void Collective tried to break through the shield network. The combined fleet focused fire on enemy ships, destroying them one by one. Ships on both sides exploded into expanding clouds of debris, but the numbers were against them. For every Void Collective ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward. The linked shields were holding, but the power drain was enormous. "Shield strength down to 40%, Kim reported. "We cannot maintain this much longer." Park watched the tactical display. The enemy was adapting, focusing fire on individual human ships to try to break the network. It was working. The Eternal Vigil shook as multiple enemy weapons targeted it specifically. "They have identified us as a command ship," Park said. "They are trying to take us out to break the formation." On his screen, Admiral Lee was having the same thought. The enemy was too smart, too adaptable. The defensive strategy was failing. They needed something else, something the Void Collective would not expect. Lee made a decision that he had hoped he would not have to make. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. Prepare for final protocol." Park felt his heart sink. Final protocol. The last desperate option they had planned 300 years ago. The option that required the ultimate sacrifice. "All human ships will break formation," Lee continued. We will perform a direct assault on the enemy command carrier. Our goal is to destroy their coordination network. Without it, the Void collective fleet will lose cohesion. Admiral, Vexthal called out, that is suicide. You will be surrounded and destroyed. Yes, Lee agreed simply. But we will take the command carrier with us, and that will give the rest of the fleet a chance to win. He paused. This is why the Vigil was built, High Coordinator. This is why we trained for 300 years, not to live forever, but to sacrifice ourselves at the moment when it matters most. Park touched his communication system. All crew, this is Captain Park. We are about to make a final assault run. Anyone who wishes to evacuate should head to the escape pods now. I will not order anyone to stay for this. On the screens throughout the ship, crew members looked at each other. Some were third or fourth generation, born on the ship. Some had joined recently as part of crew rotations. All of them had trained their entire lives for this moment. Not a single person moved toward the escape pods. Lieutenant Kim stood at her station with tears in her eyes. Captain, the crew reports all stations manned and ready. No one is leaving. Park felt pride surge through him. Very well. All hands, battle stations. We end this now. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Zixtar's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Lee, the Krellian fleet requests permission to join your assault. Denied, Lee said firmly. This is a suicide mission, Commander. I know, Zixtar replied. That is why we want to join you. You humans have taught us many things this past week. One lesson is that some causes are worth dying for. Protecting innocent lives is one of those causes. More voices joined the channel. Zenthari commanders, Vexian captains, officers from a dozen species, all volunteering to join the assault, all accepting that they would probably not survive. Vexthal listened to his people volunteer for death and felt something break inside him. For 300 years, humans had prepared alone. They had sacrificed alone. They had stood watch while everyone else slept. And now, at the end, they were still willing to die alone to protect everyone else. No, Vexthal said quietly. Then louder, no. This time humanity does not stand alone. He turned to his ship's captain. The harmony of spheres will join the assault. High Coordinator, you cannot, the captain objected. You are the leader of the council. Which is exactly why I must, Vexthal replied. How can I ask others to risk everything if I will not do the same? Admiral Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice carried emotion that had been hidden until now. All ships that wish to join the assault, form up on the human vessels. Everyone else, prepare to exploit the opening we create. Make this sacrifice count. 37 ships broke formation, 12 human vessels and 25 council ships. They formed a wedge with the Eternal Vigil at the point. Ahead of them, the Void Collective Command Carrier loomed like a dark moon. All ships, maximum speed, Lee ordered. Target all weapons on the command carrier. We break through or we die trying. The assault force surged forward. Behind them, the remaining fleet intensified their fire to provide covering shots. The Void Collective recognized the threat and tried to block the assault. Enemy ships swarmed around the wedge, firing from all sides. Ships began to explode. A Zenthari cruiser took a direct hit and broke apart. 2 Krellian destroyers collided with enemy vessels in deliberate ramming attacks. The human ship Eternal Watch lost its shields and took heavy damage, but kept flying. The Eternal Vigil shook constantly from impacts. Hull breaches appeared on multiple decks. Fires broke out in engineering sections, but the ship pushed forward, its weapons never stopping. We are through their outer line, Kim shouted over the noise. The command carrier is 3,000 meters ahead. Park could see it on the main screen. The Void Collective Command ship was massive, covered in quantum communication arrays. Destroying it would not stop the fleet entirely, but it would disrupt their perfect coordination. It would create chaos, and in that chaos, the remaining Council fleet could turn the battle. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command carrier's communication section," Admiral Lee ordered. His flagship was burning, but still fighting. "Pour everything into that target." The assault force opened fire with everything they had left: missiles, energy weapons, railguns, all focused on a single point. The command carrier's shields began to fail. Cracks appeared in its hull, but they were too few, too damaged. The Void Collective ships surrounded them, attacking from every angle. One by one, the assault ships began to die. The Eternal Watch exploded, taking Admiral Lee with it. 5 more ships were destroyed in the next minute. The Harmony of Spheres lost all power and began drifting, defenseless. On the Eternal Vigil, Park knew they had seconds left. "Kim, transfer all remaining power to weapons, everything. Engines, shields, life support, everything." "Sir, that will kill the ship," Kim said. "The ship is already dead," Park replied. "Let us make our death count." Power flowed from every system into the weapon arrays. The Vigil fired one final massive barrage, every weapon discharged at once, throwing so much energy at the command carrier that the Vigil itself went dark from the power drain. The weapons struck the command carrier's communication section. The damage that 37 ships had inflicted suddenly became critical. The section exploded, taking half the command ship with it. Throughout the Void Collective fleet, ships suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving in perfect formation. They began making individual decisions instead of collective ones. Some ships continued attacking. Others tried to retreat. A few collided with each other. "It worked," Quinvera whispered from the drifting Harmony of Spheres. "By all the stars, it actually worked." The remaining Council fleet did not waste the opportunity. They surged forward, targeting the confused enemy ships. Without perfect coordination, the Void Collective's numerical advantage meant less. Individual ships could be isolated and destroyed. The battle continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Void Collective fleet broke apart, retreating in disorganized groups. The combined fleet pursued, destroying every enemy ship they could catch. When it was over, the space was filled with debris from both sides. The Council fleet had lost 40 ships. Every single ship that had joined the final assault was either destroyed or disabled. But the Void Collective invasion force was broken. The survivors were fleeing. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. Rescue ships moved through the debris field, searching for survivors. They found the Eternal Vigil drifting without power. Its hull was broken in dozens of places. Its engines were dead. But life support had automatically reactivated on minimal power once the battle ended. Captain Park sat in his dark command chair and waited. Around him, his crew did the same. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. When rescue ships brought them back to the fleet, Park and his crew were greeted as heroes. But Park did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. So very tired. Vexthal found him in a medical bay, getting treatment for minor injuries. The High Coordinator had also survived, pulled from the Harmony of Spheres by rescue crews. "Captain Park," Vexthal said quietly, "I owe you an apology. 300 years of apologies, in fact." Park shook his head. "No apologies, High Coordinator. We did what we thought was right. We hoped that when the moment came, we would be proven right. And we hoped that others would stand with us when the proof arrived." "You were willing to sacrifice everything," Vexthal said. "Your ships, your people, your lives, for a galaxy that doubted you." "That is what it means to keep vigil," Park replied. "A guardian does not guard only those who believe in them. They guard everyone, because everyone deserves to be safe." In the days after the battle, the galaxy began to rebuild. The Eternal Vigil and the other damaged human ships were towed to repair facilities. The Galactic Council offered humanity a position of leadership, a place of honor for saving everyone. Humanity declined. "We do not want to lead." Admiral Lee's replacement said. "We want to continue our purpose. We will keep watching the deep, dark places. We will stand guard so others can live without fear. That is enough for us." The Council accepted this, though they did not fully understand. They created new treaties, new alliances. They began building their own defensive networks, learning from human experience. 6 months later, the Eternal Vigil was repaired and ready to return to service. Captain Park stood on the bridge looking at the familiar controls and screens. His crew was around him, ready to resume their mission. "Where to, Captain?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Park looked at the star map, at the vast darkness between galaxies. "Back to our vigil. Back to the watch. There are other threats out there, other enemies that we need to understand and prepare for." "And if the Council does not believe us again?" Kim asked. Park smiled slightly. "Then we prepare anyway, because that is what humans do. We see the danger. We prepare for it, and when the moment comes, we stand between the darkness and those who need protection." The Eternal Vigil turned toward the edge of space and accelerated away. Behind it, the galaxy continued living, working, dreaming. Most would forget about the ship that had saved them. That was acceptable. The vigil was not kept for glory or recognition. It was kept because someone needed to keep it. And humanity had decided long ago that they would be those someones. In the dark between stars, the 12 human ships took up their positions once more, watching, waiting, ready. The vigil continued.